Okay, hi sisters. Back for another video, and brothers, few brothers here that's with us too. Thanks for being here. Appreciate it. I went to make a video at least probably two different times within the last 5 days, and I pulled back from doing it. When I finally got the house to myself, um I just felt like chillaxing. I did not feel like making a video. And I had been really, gung ho to do it, and when it come time to do it, I lost all desire to do it. So I'm a little behind. But what it did was it actually I ended up studying three different topics. Is actually what I ended up doing when I really began with just one. And this one that I had actually was gonna make the video on, and is on the story of Zarqa Yamama. Now, I don't know if we went over some of the information in that story on Ruth Abbey a couple years back. I had hit her story, and the way that I hit her story was that I was studying the dove in the Bible. And what that did was actually to bring me to this story. It wasn't actually the other way around, which is odd. But it absolutely validated, all the information that we had been finding. So anyway, in the meantime, I had been studying two other topics, and the two other topics that I had been studying ended up. I said, well, now what do I really want to focus on that we really haven't talked about a lot or went over that information that oftentimes I'll kind of just flip it off the cuff because we've already looked at it. We kind of know it ourselves if we've looked at the information. So I don't really think about recovering some of that older ground. It's usually the same stuff over and over and over again. And so it was the right hand that came into my line of sights at that time. And I was like, well, gee, I say these three chapters, but I never really show it. So as I started studying, it began to lead me into a whole bunch of other information. And I ended up in Shebna. I ended up back to Shebna again, which we identified definitely as a female in Isaiah 22, where we actually discovered the key of David, part of the key of David. It was one of the passages that we used. So I ended up in a whole bunch of information that just absolutely tied together. And it really expands this idea of how God uses multiples. Now, I had a lady come on, and I shouldn't have disallowed the comment. I should have let it go. She said, she's one, this daughter Zion. And we do talk about it in that capacity. We do say she's one and he is one. But, all the information that we have about God, I start to look at it like perhaps it's an acronym, the word God itself. Perhaps it means government ordained decisions. And we know that the government ordained decisions of God was disallowed on this world. They absolutely turned away from the government of God. So it could be that. But oftentimes, and this is where Zarqa Yamama is going to come into it, what we find is that, this creature that they want to often display with multiple eyes, it's many people. It's the same with the many voices of God that speaks at the end. It's many people, right? That God has used over time to display the Spirit through. And we've been looking at that through a feminine aspect as opposed to the masculine because, Father says, I made everything out there. At least the men will tell you it's Father. Well, the Father was a liar from the beginning on this world. He did not want to receive the truth. And yet when we look at this world, if you use your own eyes, you are without excuse not to understand the Godhead, at least to a degree. Despite all the lies that gets told, your eyes do bear witness to a percentage of the truth that should have established our world. It is male and female, but it is a female that can create matter, right? Literally, she can create and form life. He cannot. He cannot form and shape life. She does. All those planets out there, that passages like Psalm 18, and that's a double chapter, where I think it says, I laid out the heavens, he doesn't create matter, she does. She absolutely is the one that creates matter. She creates life from nothing in her womb. in a sense. There's nothing, her body creates that life, creates the clay, creates the matter, right? And so all those heavenly stars out there, when you look out, we're actually bearing witness to matter, I think, right? It has to be matter that we're looking at. At least, maybe I just don't understand the way things works, but he certainly could not create matter. She does. And she's the one shown that clearly if you open your eyeballs to that truth. Now, having said that, it's very difficult to show someone the truth who really does not want to know the truth. They can claim to want to know it, right? Now, I know the difference because I know what it took to find the truth. I know what it took. I had actually come to a point within myself, and you can flip that off all you want, but you actually have to come to a point within yourself where you go, there's something wrong here. There is something so wrong here. And you begin to cry out to the Lord and you say, show me the truth. Show me what I'm not seeing, what I'm missing. And it's only at that point of willingness, which you can say, well, I'm going to go in, I'm going to look at it, I'm going to be fair. No, you can't be fair. You can't. Not until you come to the point where you go, all right, I'm just going to take this point of view that, all right, I'm going to learn it as it comes. I'm going to wipe the board clean of everything that I think I know. The problem with people who are saying, well, I've done that, you really haven't. You really haven't come to that point where you fall to your knees and you say, you show me, Lord, you show me it. I don't want it from some man off the pulpit showing me what tickles his little ears and is like honey on his tongue. I want to hear the truth from you, from within my spirit. I want to hear that truth. I want to see that truth. And so you begin to start to dig for that truth. You begin to start to climb for that truth. And only then when you come to that point, when you are willing to see that, will you see it. Now, you'll get people going, oh, I know what she believes. Really? It took me like 13 to 15 years to understand exactly what it was that I believed. And, in 2 minutes, just like that person who has determined in here that they really don't care to hear what you got to say. They don't really care to weigh it up. As your scales, your ears are identified in words. When you pull up those words, it'll say, well, your ears are like scales. You are to weigh up the words that you hear. Wisdom tells us you are to use knowledge and wisdom to weigh those up. They're to make sense. You're to reason them out. So, to say to somebody, well, sure, I'll tell you what I've learned in 13 to 15 years in 2 minutes, and you're unwilling to hear it in the beginning, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it. If you're sincere and you want to know it, it's not on me to open your eyes. We've discovered this, right? It's on you to want to open them. It's not on me. So you can come on here and think you're going to start a big old argument. Go watch the videos. Go through them one at a time until you discover the things that has taken us 13 to 15 years to discover that you think you're going to just dismiss in a matter of a minute. Well, go ahead. It proves that you really do not have a willing heart to see the truth in my eyes. And when I began to search, I searched. I was willing to pull anybody up and listen and try to find the sense in what they were saying. And I'll tell you, I know I'm talking too long on this, but I remember printing off a 25-page document. And it was the driest, document anybody would want to read. It was boring as all get out. But it was right in a time when I was digging for the truth. I was wanting to find just one sentence. And you know what? I read 25 pages. It was small writing. It was the tiniest writing. So it was, and the pages was full, packed full of it. But you know what? I come away with one sentence. And it was an important sentence. I can't tell you what it was. I've got it logged in one of these videos on Ruth Abbey. That whole sentence that pulled the whole idea together that I was searching for, that I could not understand. So one sentence out of 25 pages of the most boring read anybody would want to have to read. But when you're searching for the truth, you are willing to do it. You are willing to do it. You can't get anybody to watch a video like a 30-minute video, 20-minute video that might explain things that reasons and make sense, but they just don't want to hear it. So again, it's not on me to open your eyes. It's on you to want to open them. And fortunately, I'm blessed here with many sisters here who just really wants to drink. Like they just want to drink, just like me. I want to drink. And I want to drink the truth. I want to drink the pure word of God. I don't want to drink blood. I don't want to wash in blood. I want to wash in the water of God. And I want to drink that pure water. And she says in Isaiah, is it Isaiah 55? Come to my waters and drink freely. Just all you have to do is believe. And I was going to say something else there, and now I forget. So anyway, I had been looking at these 3 topics. So off we go. And I began, so let's just begin. And I'll tell you right now, this is going to be a mishmash of information. A total mishmash. So we're just going to read and we're going to see where it takes us. We're going to begin in Isaiah 51. Now, the 3 passages that I had said would absolutely identify for you what the right hand of God, who the right hand of God is identified as. You need to pull up Isaiah 51, Isaiah 52, and Psalm 89. I think, yeah, Psalm 89. And those 3 passages is absolutely going to identify the right hand of God as daughter Zion. Now, Zion just means a branch. And a branch, a scion, a scion is a descendancy, right? So this is a descendancy from the woman's seed. The woman's seed is identified as Israel. And it's called the woman's seed because it's regarding the feminine who never did depart from God. She got stabbed in the back by the accuser, but according to much of what we read, she actually did not depart from the word of God. So the woman's seed, Israel, is identified as female. They want to tell you that the right hand of God, which is Father, is the Son, Jesus, and yet nowhere in the Old Testament is Jesus identified as being the right hand. It is identified as the woman's seed, female, daughter, Zion is identified. Now, for some reason, they want to tell you, well, that just means a nation. And they'll say, but daughter Zion, it means that that's where the male descendant's going to come from, out of the nation of Israel. So they'll say that's Jesus. Well, the argument against that is they'll pit him against daughter Zion and their daughters Babylon, and they're hard bent on saying that that's a woman. They're hard bent on it. Daughter Babylon, the daughters of Babylon, and he's against her, who is considered daughter Zion in the Old Testament. Now, does that reason? No, it doesn't, and it doesn't reason for a reason. And that's what wisdom is trying to point you to. So in Isaiah 51, we're going to start reading, and where our thoughts go, we're going to go with it, whether it takes us to Shebna, whether it takes us to Zarqa, Yamama. I like saying that word, Yamama. I do. It means dove, right? And Zarqa means apparently blue-eyed, right? The blue-eyed dove. And we're going to read her story, but we're going to start in Isaiah 51. We may not end up there. We may end up with Shebna. We may end up with the Shulamite. They all coincide into this one woman, which is actually many-eyed. And we're going to look at that. Yeah, we got to get to that. Okay, so Isaiah 51, let's begin reading. Hearken to me, ye that follow after righteousness, ye that seek the Lord. Look unto the rock. The rock. Where do we find the rock? Deuteronomy 32, verse 18. She says, you forgot the rock. Some translates it, you forgot the God, the rock, that writhed in pain to birth you. So you forgot her. You forgot your mother, who was your rock. So we got, look unto the rock whence ye are hewn. She's talking to her daughters. And to the hole of the pit, which ye are dug from. So what's the hole of the pit? Well, we're in the womb of Sheol. Yeah. So we're hewn, I can never say that word, hewn from our mother. Right. We come out of our mother. But the pit that we're actually going to come out of is the womb of Sheol. And she's going to birth her firstborn daughter, is what we understand. So I didn't explain that well. But what does she say in Deuteronomy 32:18. She says, I swear by not him. It's not him that lives forever, it's she. And that points us to Shebna in many ways. Anyway, she lifts her hand. She says, I swear by not him. I swear by myself, the rock that you denied. I swear by myself that I live forever. That's the Holy Spirit in the womb of Sheol. So they get the 3 days of darkness that Jesus had to be in the womb of Sheol. No, it's her. It's absolutely her. And we get it in Psalm 3. Okay, so this is where we're going to go. Let's go to Psalm 3. Where's my Psalm 3? This is important. Because Psalm 3 identifies, she says, I laid me down and slept. Now, as children, we're told this little prayer. Now I lay me down to sleep. I pray the Lord my soul to keep, right? We've all heard this, right? Especially in our childhood. I laid me down and slept. I awaked, for the Lord sustained me. So who awoke? Who awoke is the question you should be asking. Who went to sleep? So we looked at Romans 11, and I don't have it pulled up. I do have my Bible. So we're just going to run with this. So it may end up being a long video. It may not. But we're going to run with it. So let's go to Romans 11. And what does it say in Romans 11? It's talking about the elected who has not bowed the knee to Baal. They bring that in for a reason. To the daughters, 7,000 have not bowed their knee to Baal, to the image of man as God, husband as Lord and God, because he ain't. She says, I'll remove the name of Baal off of your tongue. He ain't your Lord and your master. He never was. That's basically what she's saying. Now I'm just paraphrasing the information. So in verse 8 of Romans 11. So we're going to zero in on awake because that's going to identify the right hand of God and who's actually in reference, and it is the daughters that's in reference. So we also get the Lord that awakened, which is 136, that awakened like a warrior that's been drunk on wine, okay, which is the admixture of doctrine, identify as the Red Sea, which she has to part as the presence of God, multiple. It's not just one. You can say, yeah, there's one. There was one in many instances that the men were attacking and going against, and it's a multiple one. It's a collective group of many eyes, of many voices speaking for God, right, is what we get. So the Lord there in Psalm, is it 77, I think? 78. It's one of those where the Lord will awaken like a warrior that's been drunk. The number there is 136, which takes us to Psalm 68, the dove that's been burned to ashes, and the women that surrounds her, which is identified as their head, which is really a reference to wisdom. So it says, according as it is written, God hath given them the spirit of slumber, the spirit of sleep. All right? So the spirit is identified as going to sleep. I laid me down and slept. I awaked, for the Lord sustained me. That's why we awaken, because she's the one sustaining us. So God had given them the spirit of slumber, eyes that they should not see, and ears that they should not hear, even unto this day, the day that this was written, Romans was written, but not today, because today she's awoke us, right? That's what we're going to hear in Isaiah 51 in a minute. So, and David said, I actually think it's daughter Zion or wisdom said, because it takes us to the table that she's laid, right? In Proverbs chapter 9, is it? 8 or 9? And wisdom saith, let their table be made a snare, your admixture of lies and wine on the table. Let your table be made a snare and a trap and a stumbling block and a recompense unto them. Let their eyes be darkened that they may not see, and bow down their back always. And I say them, have they stumbled? So they struck her heel with poison, that they should fall, that she should stumble and fall. Who? The daughters of Israel that they went after, they attacked. God forbid, but rather that through their fall, salvation has come unto the Gentiles. And it did. You know how? Because the scepter that the men inside the nation of Israel in the Exodus, when they were wandering in the desert, and the calf idol came into the camp, they changed their glory over to that which eateth grass, which was a bull god, a male bull god. The glory was identified as the wise women. We see that scepter actually getting tossed out into the lands of the Gentiles. Now, what else do we know about Israel? We know that you're identified as an Israelite through the woman's seed. You are not identified through the men. How do we know that? You go into the Old Testament. It says those men that took foreign wives from the surrounding Adamic nations as opposed to their own women were struck from the books, and they were no longer considered Israelites. It was on. Why not the women? Because it was only through the women. The women are the chosen ones of God. And it's through them that the seed will flourish, not through the man. So we understand that. But, so it had come unto the Gentiles for to provoke them to jealousy. Now if the fall of them be the riches of the world, and the diminishing of them the riches of the Gentiles, and it was, how much more their fullness? Right? So we see the awake. They slumber. And we know that this chapter is concerning the elect of God. When you go in and you look the word elect, it's female, and it's female for a reason. This is her branch, her scion, right? But they're the scions from the north, from the 10 tribes, which was identifying where the female firstborns of mother's womb would actually come from. So we get in Isaiah 51, no, you're not. The pit, the quarry from which you are quarried from. Yeah, we're quarried from the pit of Sheol. That's where we're quarried from. But we're made in our mother's image. So I laid me down and I slept and I waked, for the Lord sustained me. I will not be afraid of 10,000s of people that have set themselves against me round about. And they did, right? They set themselves round about her, and they shot at her with this false bow, false covenant, with their arrows. That's your words, that they were shooting at this scion, this branch, as she ran over the wall. And they were shooting at her to take her covenant out of the land, whereupon we see her actually going to sleep. Now, we see in Ezra, 2nd Ezra, in the Apocrypha, verse 13, this Lord that rises out of the waters of the people, that's these scions again, once again, rising out of the waters. And the people are setting themselves round about her once again. So she says, Arise, O Lord, save me, O my God, for thou hast smitten all mine enemies upon the cheekbone. Thou hast broken the teeth of the ungodly. So where did the teeth take us? This was interesting. This takes us to Bashan, right? It really does. There's so many aspects to look at. But where was she struck? Upon the cheek. They have struck in the judge of Israel upon her cheek, right? That was found in Micah chapter 5, and that's female. Arise and set yourself in troops, O daughter of Zion, of troops. So it speaks of her as being the judge that was smitten upon the cheekbone. Thou hast broken the teeth of the ungodly. Salvation belongeth unto the Lord. Thy blessing is upon thy people, upon thy daughters. So the interesting thing is, now I got to remember here, 89 was the chapter we were going to go to. So let's remember the teeth there from that passage in Psalm 3. And it's a very interesting passage, but we'll continue on here because we need to get moving. There really is that much information. So in Isaiah 51, what is it? Look unto Abraham your father. No. It was Sarah that was chosen. She was specifically chosen by mother to carry the seed of the women on. But they want to put, so look unto Abraham your father and unto Sarah that just bear you. She's not your mother. For I called him alone and blessed him, I say, alone, and increased him alone. Really? All alone, huh? No. She chose Sarah. And we know she chose Sarah because Abraham actually tried to insinuate himself without Sarah in there. We see that in the Old Testament when he says, and this is the Old Testament too, but he says, well, why can't you bless Ishmael? He's my son. Why won't he do? And God got mad. God said, how dare you? Told you it would be Sarah that would carry the blessed seed. So who was really getting the blessing? And let's not forget the name of Israel. Sarah, Sarah, Sarah. God wrestles. So where did Jacob really get his name from? It wasn't from Abraham. It was actually from Sarah, which means chief too. She was the chief. She was. not Abraham. The fathers turned everything upside down and told the potter, the creator, the maker, that she had no power over her own matter, her own creation, her own vessels, her own children that she created. So she says, for I called her alone. Now we can take a larger view, go back on it a little bit more, or come in on it a little bit more. Who was that? That's Israel. The daughters inside the nation of Israel was going to be the teacher of all in the land. And the men turned on these daughters in the very beginning. And yet we saw the woman in the very beginning, after being cursed by the man, really, who accused her of turning away from the truth, yet we see her receiving the blessing as a blessed seed, the woman's seed, Israel. It would come through the woman, not the man. And so these sons continued to harp at Jesus being the right hand, and yet when we continue to study, we know absolutely it's identified as the females. So for the Lord shall comfort Zion, or Sion, she will comfort all of her waste places, and she will make her wilderness or her desert like Eden, and her desert like the garden of the Lord. Joy and gladness shall be found therein, thanksgiving and the voice of melody. Hearken unto me, my people, my daughters, and give ear unto me, O my nation, O my woman seed Israel. For a law, here we go with the law, a law shall proceed from me, and I will make my judgment to rest for a light of the people. Who will be the light of the nation? And she is promised, and she's identified as female, and she is identified, in a sense, as the bride of the covenant, as the spirit of the covenant that was denied in the very beginning. And we get him denying the wife of the original covenant, identified as the spirit in the very beginning that man denied. In Malachi 2, yet is she the wife of the youth, and she will be the spirit behind the covenant, not the harlot that you've got exalted in your heart so you can play God, boys. All you got to do is study it, and you will understand that that's exactly what it keeps reiterating over and over and over and over through the different eyes, especially of the women that gets turned on in the scriptures. So my righteousness is near, my salvation is gone forth, and mine arms, here we go, shall judge the people. The isles shall wait upon me, and on mine arm shall they trust. We're soon going to identify that arm. Lift up your eyes to the heavens and look upon the earth beneath, for the heavens shall vanish away like smoke, and the earth shall wax old like a garment, and they that dwell therein shall die in like manner. But my salvation shall be forever, and my righteousness shall not be abolished or shattered. So we get the shattering of the power of the holy people. What's the power of the holy people identified in Daniel? Actually, when we look at it's the harlot spirit. That's the power of the holy people, is a harlot spirit that exalts a man as God. That's the power. And she will be shattered by the true scions and the true daughters. The true scepter, Shiloh, is what we're going to look at maybe if we keep going on. So if I do drop this study, we'll just pick up all of these in another video. Is how I'm going to do it. So hearken unto me, ye that know righteousness, the people in whose heart is my law. So she says, I'll write the truth on your heart. You'll know it when you hear it. And it's only going to be for those who dearly seeks it, right? Who really wants to know the truth, who looks around and goes, what they're telling me don't add up. It ain't making no sense. So fear ye not the reproach of men. So she's speaking to her daughters here. You have my law written on your hearts. It was always for you to carry. And she says to these males who thinks it's their God-given right to carry the law, she says, what right do you have to carry my statutes on your tongue? What right do you have? None. But she says to her daughter, hearken unto me, ye that know righteousness, the people in whose heart, the daughters in whose heart is my law. Fear ye not the reproach of men, neither be ye afraid of the revilings, because they were reviling her. Fear ye not the reproach of man, nor be dismayed at their revilings. Let's keep going. For the moth shall eat them up like a garment, and the worm shall eat them like wool. But my righteousness shall be forever, and my salvation from generation to generation. So the next verse we're going to look at. But where does that moth take us to? It takes us to Isaiah 59. is where it takes us to. So back we go to Isaiah 59. I have so many tabs pulled up. We're just going to pull it up here. All right. Isaiah 59. What does it say in Isaiah 59 about these garments that the worm can eat up? So we also get the idea here of the worm. It says father corruption. That's your first father who rejected the truth in the land. Satan's name traces straight back to Adam, straight back to Baal. Beelzebub. Baal means your husband. Baal means Lord of Dung. All right? We've established all that. And so when we go to Isaiah, so the worm is identified as mother and daughter that has fed on father and son corruptions. Yeah. Isaiah 59, right here. What does it say? It says this. I can find it. Maybe early on here. This is a great chapter anyway, because it says in transgressions and lying against the Lord and departing away from our God, speaking oppression and revolt, conceiving and uttering from the heart words of falsehood, which is what the wicked prophets on the pulpit are currently doing today. And judgment is turned away backward, and justice standeth afar off, your judge who is struck on his cheek. For truth is fallen in the street, and equity cannot enter in. Right? Equity, fairness, truth, upright, equality for all, because truth was fallen in the street. She did. So let's see, and understand they've got the he pronoun all over everything. Everything is he. So what does it say? Let me see if we can find it. Yeah, right there. So it's in the early part of 59. I was actually looking at the latter part of it. And what does it say? It says, understand what we're guilty of in God's eyes. For your hands are defiled with blood. That's what this wicked, lying, washed in blood has done. It's allowed man to write the law, which yokes the woman, puts a yoke on her, religious lying law, and it actually covers us in blood as well when we support this lying, male-oriented law system that allows violence to creep in and injustices and inequalities to creep in. And that's what God keeps harping at us. You did not follow my law. You did not follow my law. And I told you to make no idol, and you made an idol, and you're following your idol, and you're following his ways, which is a bloodshed law. So we get, for your hands are defiled with blood, and your fingers with iniquity. Your lips have spoken lies, your tongue hath muttered perverseness. So what does she say to the harlot? We looked at this in the last video, Isaiah 47. She says, your wisdom, it has perverted thee. You're playing man's harlot. And your tongue has muttered perverseness. None calleth for justice. Nope. The daughters are too busy being man's handmaiden, as they call them. Harlots. It's harlotry to bow to this idol of man as God. It's harlotry. God calls it harlotry. None calleth for justice, nor any pleadeth for truth. They trust in vanity, that's graven images, and they speak lies. They conceive mischief, and they bring forth iniquity. So why now do I see every man standing around with his hands on his hips as a woman in travail, and every face is turned pale? A man don't bring forth life. He doesn't travail to even bring it forth. She does. And that's why the Lord, which I've identified now as the glory that sat in, where is it? Oh, now I can't remember the chapter. 2 Kings 19 or 1 Kings 19? Was that what it was? Yeah. Yeah. And the glory is sitting between the cherubim. She shakes her head, right? She shakes her head. Because that's actually Shebna. That's what I've concluded. All my studies have led me into that direction, that was Shebna. Yeah. Because it's all in the context. It's all wrapped up. See, we're getting off track here. But it's all wrapped up in Sennacherib and Hezekiah at that time. And that takes us to Shebna in Isaiah 22, who was the original, the commander of the host of that house. And it was really her house. And what it looks like is the kings were coming together to tell all these nasty lies about her. And anyway, Hezekiah gets turned on. Sennacherib turns on Hezekiah. Anyway, okay, sorry. I got off track there. But she shakes her head. The daughter Zion has shaken her head. And what does she say? That's where we go. She says, the children have come to the birth and there is not strength to deliver. Why? Because they were cutting down the righteous daughters out of the land, identified as cedar trees. They're identified in, what passage? Now I can't remember the passage. In Psalm, where they were as axemen welding axes in a forest, and they were coming against her house, and the house in the forest of Lebanon, and they were removing all semblance of these righteous daughters. So what were they doing? They were preventing the women from birthing the children. So she says in that passage in 1 Kings 19 or 2 Kings 19, she said, the children have come to the birth and there is not strength to deliver. When Hezekiah goes up to her. Well, what is she talking about? She's talking about what the men were doing to the women at that time. And we know Hezekiah went up, cut down these particular representations of the divine feminine. And Sennacherib says to Hezekiah, when Hezekiah goes up to this Lord, which was Shebna, it was so Shebna. And she was still sitting there because the key that gets laid in Isaiah 29 is not on Eliakim. It is so on Shebna. Now, they've placed the dividing of those passages wrong. It was placed on Shebna. And can you imagine if you are naive enough to trust the men in the household where you are, that you are identifying yourself as their great help, and you are there to help them, right? And they all of a sudden stab you in the back without you realizing what's going on, what that would do to you, what that would cause in you. And when we get looking at what it caused great anger in it, and she turned to be their enemy, which takes you to the passage in Isaiah 64. Yet that key gets laid on her shoulder to restore the house back to her mother. And the key of David is the government of God laid upon her shoulder that these men were tearing down at that time. So she ends up out in the desert, we're told, in some of the studies to do with Shebna. She gets cut away, and she had held, in most sense, when you get the feminine aspect correct, she was the commander of the host and of the army of the house in Isaiah 22, which is identified as Hezekiah's house. Now, I said it was Solomon, but Solomon overlays right over the same type of thing that he was out to do, which was to dismantle the female's house and her power. So Hezekiah was part of it with Sennacherib. They say he was a noble king. He wasn't noble when he went up and tore down all the female representation and left the male one standing for everybody to bow down to. Which is why the Lord says, the children have come to the birth, but there is not strength to deliver. Why? Because the men were attacking the females that could deliver them. And so she was considered the great help, but what were they accusing her of? They were accusing her of making sepulchres, that cutting out a sepulchre for herself. And so when this accusation come up against her, you never once hear her defending herself. She simply goes silent. She doesn't say another word after that. She goes silent. But she is so the Lord sitting in 1 Kings or 2 Kings 19, who Hezekiah does so go up to. Now they say a lot of nasty things about her, but the key does so get laid on her shoulder to restore the house, because she is the one that is considered having lost the house when the men began to accuse her. And God herself, in some of these passages, says, why would you want to make a sepulchre with the kings? Because they try to say, well, these high places, these sepulchres that the kings were cutting out for themselves was really only meant for kings, not for Shebna, who was this man. They'll say, no, you got to get your gender right. It was a woman. It was a woman. And they were turning on her and they were saying, this woman is saying she's as great as a king. That's what they were trying to say. She's saying she's one of us, a king. And basically the idea becomes to the Holy One, the real Holy One, that she's actually under, because we get this stacking level. That's why there's many here. Saying, why would you want to die with a man when I gave you eternal life. When you come from me, you have eternal life, my daughter. And it's spoken in some of the passages to do with Shebna and how they actually identify it. And she says it in some of the passages. Why would you cut yourself out a sepulchre in death when you can live forever with me? You're one of my daughters. And so she says, why would you do that? And then we get in Isaiah 64 or 63, she says, where is she? At the end, when she finally remembers this Lord, she says, I'll cast you like a ball in a faraway land, right? And she becomes identified as a stranger in Babylon. That's Zerubbabel, right? That's another name for Zerubbabel, a stranger in a strange land. She became a foreigner. And Shebna is called a foreigner. And yet, Shebna is identified, another name for Shebna is Aram. What was another name for Aram? Syria. Where was Syria? Syria was in the North Kingdom, where all of this was going on. Yet they were saying she was a foreigner here. She was not the foreigner. The accusers was accusing the spirit of the original covenant of not doing what she was ordained to do. And so they said, well, she's doing all this stuff. And they were point. And God says, fine, you went silent. You never said nothing in your defense, but I'm going to lay this key upon your shoulder, Shebna, to restore it back to me. All right? So they have it all screwed up. I don't care what anybody says. When you get your deep understanding, and when we get the right hand identified, it all connects us to the Shulamite. It connects us to Shebna, who was cast out like a ball into a far-off land. She actually went into the desert. We get the Shulamite going into the desert land. Yep. She says, I dwell amongst the tents of Kedar. And it was the Shulamite that you identified dwelling amongst the tents of Kedar. She says, I am for peace, but they are for war. Right? That takes us to Zarqa Yamama. Right? It really does. And all those passages lines up with all of these other passages that we look at. So when we get looking at the right hand again, what does it say? So we went to Romans 11, awake, they went into sleep, a deep slumber, right? Then we went to Psalm 3. She says, she went to sleep, yet at the end the Lord awakens that spirit that went to sleep. Now she also promises her, why would I leave you awake to bear witness to all the foolish things and all the wicked things that this man-made religious law and law system is going to do to you, daughters? I'm going to let that spirit go to sleep within you, right? Which is why you read that in Psalm 3. Yet she preserves us and awakens us, right? Psalm 3. I laid me down and I slept. I awaked. Remember that. For the Lord sustained me. The Lord who? Our mother wisdom sustains us. So back here in verse 9, what does it say of Isaiah 51? This is how we identify. Awake, awake. There we go again. Awake, awake. Who's awakening? Put on strength, O arm of the Lord, the right hand. Awake, as in the ancient days, in the generations of old. Art thou not it? No, art thou not she that has cut Rahab? Who's Rahab? You look this word up, it's another name for who? Egypt. Right? Art thou not she that hath cut Rahab and wounded the dragon? It's also a name for your Leviathan. Let's look it up right here right quick. Which is the presence that has to part the water out of Egypt, which is considered an idolatrous nation, where the cow idolatry, the bull idolatry comes out of, and you changed your glory over to that which eateth grass, which is a bull, which is Apis, which then becomes Baal, another name for this bull god. Over time becomes Baal, and Baal is another name for your husband, your bridegroom. And God says, and I believe it's in Hosea, I will remove the name of Baal off of your tongue. He ain't your Lord and your master, though he sure wants to push it, that Jesus is bridegroom. And even as he is head of the church, head of the woman, so too is man head of his wife. You see how they love to do it? No, she says, you changed your glory over to that which eateth grass, and you have no right to hold my statutes on your tongue. Truth could not enter in. Equity could not enter in. You contaminated my daughters with a plague of idol worship of man as God. And then, what does it say? Truth could not enter in. Oh yeah, we didn't finish this. They hatch a cockatrice eggs and weave the spider's web. He that eateth of their eggs dieth, and that which is crushed breaketh not into a viper, breaketh out into a viper. Their webs, I'm sorry, I forgot this was what I wanted to read. Their webs shall not become garments. They shall not become garments, neither shall they cover themselves with their works. All your works will burn, all your works in an idol will burn. Their works are works of iniquity, and the act of violence is in their hands. Their feet run to evil, and they make haste to shed innocent blood. Their thoughts are thoughts of iniquity, wasting, and destruction are in their paths. And they say to her, in what passage was it? 58? Nope, it's 51. It's right here. They say, bow down that we may go over, and you have laid your back flat. Who did that? The women. The women did. So we were studying that, right? In was it Psalm 3 where it took us to? Now I can't remember where I was connecting it to. It may have been Romans 11, the garment and all that stuff not holding together because they've laid a web of lies. And so when we go down into the womb of Sheol, it says the kings are trapped there, right along beside the harlot, their handmaiden who's bowing to man as if he's Lord and God. So awake, to rouse oneself awake, awaken. Strength, what was I looking at here? Rahab, 7294, sorry, I'm losing track here. Storm, a name for Egypt. If we go down here, we scroll down here. So Rahab is a name of Egypt. Boaster, an epithet of Egypt, Rahab. So God also says, and the Lord there always in Ezekiel is the Lord's number 136. So we know it's daughter Zion because that links us to the dove that's been burned to ashes. And Psalm 68, that the women are surrounding their very own head. A strange thing shall be seen in the earth. A woman shall encompass, not a man, a woman. She'll encompass her own head. Wisdom. Yeah, that's the creation of her house. She has to create her house. She has to restore the house of God. The key of David, it's not a son, it's a woman, is the firstborn. We've identified that the womb of God held male and female, where in the beginning they're trying to say all it held was two males. Cain actually was the one that was offering up blood. Abel was actually a female. A field means a field, a meadow, and it was a daughter, and he murdered her, and that's why we actually get Cain, that was the one offering up blood. He was not offering up the good of the land. It was she that was doing it. And then we get, oh, the Lord has gave me another son, right? So they turn everything upside down, and they try to say, well, the womb only holds two males. It's Jacob wrestled with Esau. Jacob becomes Israel. It was Jacob and Israel in the womb, and he wrestled with her, and he stole her birthright. And that's exactly what we see going on in the land, to do with masculine, feminine, as a Godhead, you're without excuse not to understand, but she is the one that does create matter. She's the one that creates life, and she actually, if you want to look at all the old ancient gods, it's the female gods that predate the male gods, because it took the females to give life to everything. They're the only ones that create matter. They're the only ones. And it seemed like that ability really makes the male jealous, really. It's a real big power. That's why she says, I laid the heavens out. And she says, I alone did that. And I believe she says that in Deuteronomy 32. She says, you forgot the God that gave life to you. She says, I'm the only one alone that can do that. I did that alone. There was no God with me when I did it. She says in Deuteronomy 32. So that's why you get the men. Why now do I see every man standing around with his hands on his hips as if he gives life? You know, he don't give life. And then she says, the children have come to the birth, but there's not strength to deliver them, because the men were coming against the women that could deliver them. They are considered the great help. which is another term for God in the Bible. So when the woman is created, her terminology is helper. And they want to put that masculine. Every time the word helper, and there's no such thing really, it's applied to God in 2 times to the woman. It is a woman that is the great help of man and who can deliver him through the truth of the Spirit and through her law that he rejected in the beginning. Okay, so Rahab is a name for boaster, an epitaph of Egypt. And when you hit on Rahab, it'll say a storm, a sea monster, as in the Leviathan, a mythical sea monster, bluster, proud, strength. So Pharaoh was these things, and she says, "You muddy my water, you muddy my water." So she says after the presence actually went through mixture, and she said, "You didn't see my pathway. It covered over my footsteps. You didn't see the presence of God." And then we see God calling her out, who had placed her spirit within Moses. She says, "Where is she who went down to make a name for herself?" Which is why then we get her having the key of David laid upon her shoulder. But then we get Hezekiah finally going back up to her after between him and what Sennacherib and some of these wicked kings were actually accusing her of doing. And I have to think that they were. In his great fear, he goes back up to this Lord, Sennacherib. And he says, "Can you deliver me?" And I think that is where she ends up out in the desert, and possibly with the last bit of her power, she strikes the 185 army strong of Sennacherib and causes him to go back to his land, where he gets murdered by his own, his own son. One of his own sons murders him in his own land. And she says, "I'll cause a rumor to come into your ear." And I connect it all back to everything I know about Shebna. I hope I've been saying Shebna. So Shebna was the one that gets dethroned from her position of power, which was head of the house. It was not Hezekiah. Her job was to bring great help to him, and to protect him, and to be the covering that he needed to protect him, and that was with the law. They accuse her over and over in Isaiah 22. You can see the accusations get made. And then she says, God says, "Fine, I'm taking your position and I'm demoting you." She gets demoted. And Eliakim, now whether Eliakim is a man, an actual male, or if it is another daughter willing to play man's harlot, I haven't quite understood yet. But her role, her glory, gets placed upon this one named Eliakim. And then they want to say that, "Then I will place the key of David upon your shoulder," and they try to say it's Eliakim. No, I think there's a divide there. I think the thought has to stop there, and then it goes right back to God saying to Shebna, "But on you will I place the key of David. You're going to have to establish your mother's house." And she says, "Who shall ascend into my holy hill? She with clean hands and a pure heart." That's Shulamite. That ain't no man. The Shulamite was out in the desert, the tents of Kedar, we find, with a little flock of she-goats called the first fruits. Yeah, 144,000. She has a double camp with her. We also see her in reference in the Psalm 18. Reference is all to do with she that's in the desert. Then we go to Isaiah 55. I think it's Isaiah 55. Maybe, no, it's Psalm 55, which I do have pulled up. And she says, "Oh, that I had the wings of a dove, that I might escape to the desert." You know, because after they accused her, and she was naive to believe that she was actually their great help and their covering and that they were receiving her. And all of a sudden they just stab her in the back. Well, now we never hear of Shebna declaring her case. All we get is a whole bunch of accusations written by men after that fact. That's all we get. Of course, they're saying it's a man. It's clearly not a man. That began to grow. That was all of the accusations. They removed all the female power out of the Bible after these women succumb to their lies over time, when these great cedars got cut down over time, represent as the wise daughters with great power upon them, able to do things that none of the succeeding generations can do, because we lost our great power. And so the cedars are saw being cut down by these wicked sons who went up against them. Why? Because we get in Isaiah 14, why? Because they wanted to be like the Most High, right? Then we get the seventh trumpet. She says, I swear by him who lives forever. He don't live forever. She does. She says, I swear by her, my mother, who lives forever. And she was the same one swearing in Deuteronomy 32. She says, I swear by myself that I live forever, because it was her own power that she was swearing by. As the sovereign, she had the power to do that. He doesn't, right? But he was looking at cutting these daughters of the land, and you get multiple occasions, multiple examples of daughters. Okay. So, awake, as in days gone by. So we got to get moving. We're going to look at the eyes here. It's multiple. All right. When we look at that blue-eyed dove, it's identified for us when we get digging into some of the words. It's amazing what you can learn when you have a willing heart to learn it. It's a shame more don't. They profess to be the holy ones of the Lord, and they don't want to know the truth. You're not holy. So again, let's take this in Isaiah 51. Awake, awake, put on strength, O arm of the Lord. Awake as in the ancient days, in the generation of old. Art thou not she that hath cut Rahab and wounded the dragon? So we saw it being spoken of in Daniel. Again, we need to touch on this right quick before we move on. So we're going to move to Daniel. I think it's chapter 8. So I'm sure I'm forgetting to throw in other information along the way. I move from one thought to the next too fast. I'm sorry. So what does it say? Let me see. It is perhaps not that chapter. I should have it circled. Yeah, it is. It's chapter 8. You watch. I use the word it. It's in reference to the harlot that gets exalted there, which you find locked in man's heart in Isaiah 47. No one sees me, because she has to play his harlot, his handmaid, so he can play God and be the commander of the host. That's what it's about. So, Daniel 8, what does it say? And it waxed great even to the host of heaven, and it cast down some of the host and of the stars to the ground and stamped upon them. That was her. That was her getting cast down from her throne of power. She's identified as the principal, not a prince, a principal. Your principles come from your first fruits, which is your law, your principles that you are founded upon. So they'll make it a prince. We saw Sarah's name actually meaning princess, which means principal. Truly, that's what she was. Israel's name is from Sarah, God wrestles, yeah. And Jacob wrestled with the angel of the Lord, the presence of God, and really stole her birthright, is what we find doing. So God leaves, and she says, until you can present your case, I lay this key upon your shoulder, the government of God, and the restoration of my house back to me, my children back to me, my children back to my law, right? So, and it, there we go with the it. No, it's not it. It's she that hath cut Rahab and wounded the dragon. That's the righteous. This is the wicked one, right? And it, she the harlot, waxed great even to the host of heaven. And it, she, cast down some of the hosts and of the stars to the ground and stamped upon them. So we found her in Ephrata. There we found her in Ephrata. We also find the glory of the Lord in Lamentations 2 that gets cast down into the ground, into the land. This one, she says to Shebna, she says, I will toss you like a ball into a foreign land. She becomes a foreigner in Babylon, holding the truth. And then over time, we find them going to sleep, this right hand of God. Then she says at the end, awake, awake, put on strength, O arm of the Lord. Are you not? Art thou not it? No, art thou not she that hath cut Rahab, Egypt, and wounded the dragon? So, yea, he, and he did, he magnified himself through her. but he magnified her so he could be magnified. So, yea, she magnified himself, even to the principal, she, of the host, and by him and her, the harlot, and by him playing God, the daily sacrifice was taken away in the place of his sanctuary. No, her sanctuary was cast down. That's the righteous daughter, the right hand of God, the woman's seed. Her sanctuary got cast down, and that was known as the hast in the forest of Lebanon, where the government of God, these wise women met to take on the principles of God, share the principles and the laws that would protect man. Yeah, and he turned from that and stabbed her in the back. So, and the host was given over against the daily sacrifice. What's the daily sacrifice? God said, I ask of you nothing more than thanksgiving, praise, and free will offering. The free will offering is not blood. It was never blood. So what they did is they cast this house down so the daughters no longer knew, it says, when these axemen, like axemen welding axes in a forest, come into their sanctuary and they cut their houses down. They cut the trees of the forest of Lebanon down, which was the wise women. And so their glory gets cast down, and they stamp upon these stars of glory we see. And so she becomes what's known as the abomination. It becomes the abomination of desolation. She becomes what's known as a desolate spirit when she goes to sleep, right? So we get the awake. So she goes to sleep, she becomes desolate. We get her identified as a desolate spirit in Isaiah 54. So let's go to Isaiah 54 and we'll read that. So this is what it means to study. This is what it means to have a willing heart. It means to listen. It means to identify passages that goes together. It doesn't mean to listen to the boys on the pulpit talk about themselves. Okay, it means to study. Oh, I'm going the wrong way. Okay, so Isaiah, I was going the wrong way. 54. So Isaiah 54, what does it say? And you got to reason, you got to use wisdom. She says, let me see if I can turn this up. My light here. Let's see. There we go. Sing, O barren, thou that didst not bear, and break forth into singing, and cry aloud, thou that did not travail with child. For more are the children of the what? Desolate. Now remember the term abomination of desolation. She becomes a desolate spirit. Yet more are the children of the desolate than of she who is the married wife. Who's the married wife here identified as? Baal. She becomes him. She becomes his handmaiden, teaching his lies to her vineyard. But my own vineyard have I not kept, the Shulamite says. That's the spirit going to sleep. So awake, put on strength. Lord 136, who is the Lord of kings, who is the Lord of her lords, which is her daughters. Yeah, it says the scepter. Also Shiloh. So to whom so what does the word Shiloh means? Well, we looked at that again in some videos a long time ago on Ruth Abbey. So I tend to do this once I know something, and I cement it in, but I don't always share it over and over again. And I just assume that you know it. So Shiloh means to the one to whom it belongs to. Well, now who might it belong to? Well, it's me because I had a dream and it said it was me. You know how it's to the one to whom it belongs to? It's to the one who's willing to do the work. We discovered that we can have dreams, right, sisters? And many of us have. It's not the dream that anoints you, is it? We've discovered this. It's the work that you do that anoints you, isn't it? So they can say, oh, your works are going to burn if you don't have faith. No, your faith in your religious lie is going to cause your works to burn because you refuse to go in and ask the questions that wisdom tells you to. And she says, when I called, you couldn't be bothered to listen to anything I had to say. You couldn't be bothered. It's only going to be her scepter, her branch, identified as Shiloh, to the ones to whom it belongs to. And unto her shall the gathering of the people be. Asaph is your gatherer. We identified this, and that's she, your Koheleth, who sets the case in order and says to Adam in Psalm 50, I will rebuke you, Adam, and I'll set the court case in order because you got it all wrong, which is what Mother is waiting for with Shebna, women like Shebna, women like the Shulamite. We're looking at many eyes here, and other women in the scriptures that got denied. And so in Isaiah 54, the abomination of desolation. What's the abomination of desolation we find? A man inside of a man. Because what? They say man is God. He. You can say, no, it doesn't. Well, it empowers man to write the laws, which is bloodshed. That's why you're washed in a man's blood. But she also says, come to my waters in Isaiah 55 and believe it. She doesn't say buy as in the sense purchasing. She says buy, believe. Buy means believe it. You are free to believe it. Free. It's free. Just all you need to do is believe and be washed by my waters. And then that takes you to Isaiah 4:4, where she says, I will wash the blood. You reach up to me and you say, oh, you praise me. But she says, you approach to me with the vain traditions of men. You don't even know who I am. You've got hate in your heart and you're calling it a God of love, telling my daughters that they must bow to you. And you write laws, and you yoke, and you yoke, and you yoke. And you took counsels against me. And you said, let us cut her law system asunder so we can put one on her neck. And we find the kings doing that in Psalm 2. The kings took counsel against her. We find them doing it in Psalm 83 against her hidden ones, which is her daughters and her scepter, her personal scion descendancy. That's what we find. So the abomination of desolation is in reference to how this righteous daughter becomes desolate with no children, listening to the spirit of her covenant. That's what it's a reference to. And the abomination is a man inside of a man. And then we see the further understanding of the greater abomination in Isaiah 47, a harlot exalted in his heart. He's demanding the female bow to him as if he's Lord and God. And she's a willing harlot. No one sees me. I will never be willless. I will never be childless. My name's Baal, just like him. They become Baal. That's what it says. So yet more of the children of the desolate than the one that got rejected, like Shebna, like the Shulamite, even like Zarqa al Yamama. So awake, awake, put on strength, O arm of the Lord, as in the ancient days, you who cut Rahab the dragon. So we got her home, her house of authority got taken away. It got took away. And the period of time that this gets taken away extends to years of religious lies and laws of a man as your head in God. She says, I'll remove the name of Baal off of your tongue. He ain't your Lord and Master. Basically, she's saying he never was. I'll wash the blood and filth off of my daughters. The filth there is human excrement. It leads you to the Baal God, who means husband, also bridegroom, as your Lord and Master, that they teach you to bow to, like Esther in the book of Esther, where Mordecai, whose name means follower of Marduk. Marduk's another name for Baal. Marduk's another name for the golden calf idol. So he was teaching this little girl how to bow to a king, and then the king, by his wicked advisors, male advisors, he says, that wicked Vashti won't bow to you. Don't she know she's just a nothing woman and you're king, and she better bow. Guess what? We'll take her away. We'll bring in a child that's been taught by a man who knows that a woman ought to bow to a man as if he's her head, and we'll decree a law that says every woman must bow to her Baal. Her husband. You wonder why she went silent? Yeah, that's why she went silent. So let's continue on in Isaiah 51, and then we'll go back up to verse 9 in a minute, okay? So art thou not she, which has dried the seas, the waters of the great deep, that has made the depths of the sea a way for the ransom to pass over? It's the presence of God that divides the admixture of lies, which is identified as your Red Sea, which is also identified as a birthing canal, which you find her in Isaiah 42 saying, long time have I restrained myself. Now will I go forth as a travailing woman. I will destroy and devour at once. I will lead you in pathways that you have not known. I'm going to straighten the pathway. So over and over again, we get it identified as she that went silent, that has to present her case. She must restore mother's house. Who can ascend into my holy hill? Only she with clean hands and a pure heart. And then we go to Isaiah 63. Okay, I'm trying to move here, trying to remember everything with all these facts that we have. What does she say? She says, this Lord, remember, she got cast out. Isaiah 63, in all their afflictions, she was afflicted. And she was. This Lord is found bearing the burden, which is the deliverance of children. That's not a man. The children have come to the birth, and there is not strength to deliver. Yet at the end, she awakens them, and there becomes the strength to deliver. She does not leave us. And we find the Lord being responsible. She is the one that will bear the burden and deliver. Salvation belongeth unto this Lord. And that's number 136 in Psalm 68. So in all their affliction, she was afflicted, and the angel of her presence saved them. And in her love and in her pity, she redeemed them, and she bare them. Yes, she did, not he. She carried them all the days of old. But they rebelled, and they vexed her Holy Spirit. Therefore, she was turned to be their enemy and fought against them. And she did. That takes us back to the image of what happened to Sennacherib's army. She went out and she struck them. After they lied about her and they blasphemed her holy name to her own mother, they blasphemed her holy name. And she could not figure out what was going on. Can you imagine the anger you'd feel? She turned against them. But she does say to Hezekiah, fine, I'll preserve you this once. Now, it was that time that he was actually preserved from the hand of Sennacherib. But the next time that the Assyrians come up against Hezekiah, he gets took into captivity, I believe. So she does preserve them. So she chose to suffer with them in their affliction. But they rebelled, and they vexed her Holy Spirit. Therefore, she was turned to be their enemy, and she fought against them. And she did. She went out and she struck 185,000 of them. And then Sennacherib turned back to his land when he heard that rumor, and he went back, and his own son struck him dead. So then she remembered who? Well, we got two she's here. Well, now it's the mother who left, who laid the key upon her. She says, you're going to restore my house back to me. Because these men are accusing you of doing something and you're saying nothing about it. And Shebna never once presents her case. And neither does the Shulamite. And neither does Eve in the beginning. When the accuser accuses her, her husband, man the accuser, she says, oh, if my accuser had written a book. Well, guess what he did right here? She says, I would wear it like a crown upon my head and I would use it to exonerate myself in the end. Guess what she does? But daily she bore the burden, the deliverance of the children, right? Daily she carries that through. The children have come to the birth. There's no strength to deliver. Yet she bore this burden, as they call it. She says, you quit prophesying the burden of the Lord, the burden of the Lord. Or I will cause every man's sword to come upon each other. What's the sword? Your religious lies. And boy, haven't they. They're at each other's throat, aren't they? Well, now they're trying to make it appear like they're all coming together with Jesus as their head and the true God that gave life to everything. Yet the children have come to the birth, and there is not strength to deliver. Why now do I see every man standing around as a woman in travail saying, peace, peace, when there is no peace? And lo, one built up a wall. Yeah, it's all connected. You see what they're doing. So what else does, what goes on here? Then she remembered. That word was significant to me. I discussed why. The days of old, Moses and her people saying, where is she that brought them up out of the sea with the shepherdess of the flock or shepherd? Moses was the shepherd. She's the shepherdess, but she's the shepherdess that comes out of Joseph's blessings, identified as the rock and the God that you denied. So that's where your divine feminine comes from in your picture of these tribes. Where is she that put her Holy Spirit within him, within the men that would follow her way? So that led them by the right hand, that she, it's got of Moses. No, she was the right hand, but she's also the sovereign. So though they've got her tagged onto Moses like she's second best, she wasn't. She's the sovereign of the kingdom. It was through her rule, and Moses was following that rule. I saw that in a dream, but he got cast out when he actually struck the rock, which identified her. In a sense, he was going against her when he did that. there is some understanding that it was intentional, but at the same time it says that Moses was angry at the people on her behalf. And in his anger, he struck the rock, which then plays out in a ritualistic manner. She's saying, why did you strike the rock? Now that's a telling point. It's almost a prophecy when he did that, in a sense. He was saying the people was going to rebel against her, and she did. They did rebel against her. And so because of that great rebellion, because Moses struck the rock, he was not permitted to enter the promised land, was he? And yet they fight. Satan fight over the body of supposedly Moses, right? So it's the idea that, Moses did do good. He did try to do what was right by her. But he made some mistakes. Now, I tend to believe it because I saw a dream. And I saw a dream where I could look out through his eyes for some reason, and I really could not understand the reason why until I hit on these passages and I began to understand a little bit better. So she that put her Holy Spirit within him, this is that led them by the right hand, and with her glorious arm, dividing the water before them, to make herself an everlasting name. Who? Israel. Israel, the one that they were stabbing, these daughters. They were stabbing them in the back, and they were denying their law that was going to govern this land, and they went to a blood covenant, is what we see them doing. Therefore the redeemed of the Lord shall return and come with singing unto Zion, and everlasting joy shall be upon their head, and they shall obtain gladness and joy and sorrow, and mourning shall flee away. I am she, not he. That's wisdom, our mother, that comforteth you, who art thou, that thou shouldest be afraid of a man that shall die. and they're just going to die. Oh, they threaten you, but they're just going to die. You, my daughters, live eternally because you're mine, and I told you you will live eternally. That's why the Lord that God denied in Deuteronomy 32, she says, you denied the rock that begat you and gave life to you. That's your mother. You denied her, yet I swear by myself that I live forever, she says. And so she's eternal. And that's why Shebna, like we said, these men were working to get her accused by her mother and cast off of her very own throne of power. And so we saw her getting tossed like a ball into a far-off land. We identify that as a false orbit that she actually gets cast down into. But she's also identified as a foreigner in a foreign land, which is the name of Zerubbabel, a foreigner in Babylon. So she's not holding Babylon's lie on her tongue. And that takes us to Revelations 14:4. She says, we are not defiled by Babylon, the harlot's words and lies. We're not defiled by that lie. And we know its daughters identified there as the first fruits because they're found with the Shulamite, this double camp. One camp, 72,000. She's with this double camp known as the lilies of covenant, known as the she-goats of the covenant, are identified as a little flock of she-goats, 144,000 double camp. But the word default takes us to besmirched into black, into blacken, which means to defile, to bring into mourning, into a religious lie that yokes her under his law and blood system of violence. And it does. And so it takes us straight back to the Shulamite who says, look not upon me because the false light, his lie has shone upon me and made me black, besmirched me, defiled me, oppressed me. So I am she that comforteth you, who art thou, that thou shouldest be afraid of a mere man that shall die, and of the Son of Man, which shall be made as grass. So it says that these daughters will be appointed, but they will not be appointed by the Son of Man. They're appointed by the Holy Spirit, their mother. And I forgettest the Lord thy maker, and you forgottest the Lord thy maker. That's your maker, your potter, your creator. You told the potter she had no power over her own creation, and you turned everything upside down. You turned her feet away. The true creator, the true maker, the true potter, and laid the foundations of the earth, and has feared continually every day because of the fury of the oppressor. Man, Adam, your accuser and your oppressor, as if he were ready to destroy. And where is the fury of the oppressor? The captive exile hasteneth that he may be loosed. No, she, the prisoner, is soon to be set free. She will not die and go to the pit, and her food will not be lacking. These are the daughters who escapes the pit. No, ye not. The pit and the womb from which you're cut from. Yes, we do. We're cut from the womb of Sheol, but we escape it. The kings are trapped in the womb of Sheol because their body is a web of lies that can't hold together. And it says, a snare they lay for my dear daughters to fall into. And she told him in the beginning, she said, if you start spewing this lie and you start running with this lie to all these other tribes, to all these other countries, you're going to end up into a snare that you cannot escape. And you know what? They have. Watch them. Jesus, Jesus, Jesus. Father, Father, Father. There's your pit that you will never escape from. Yet she promises the daughters, I promise you, the snare they laid for my precious one, my preserved ones, my strong ones, that's right, they're strong. They're able to pull themselves up out of this lie and crush the serpent's head. Yep, part the Red Sea. They're able to go out and be delivered. That's the presence of God. That's the true daughters of Israel. Awake, awake, stand up, O Jerusalem, O land of peace. O Israel, which has drunk at the hand of the Lord the cup of her fury. Thou hast drunken the dregs of the cup of trembling and wrung them out. So this is her having gone to sleep, right? Which we see her going to sleep. And the Lord says, yet I'll preserve you. So during this time, apparently her true daughters in the spirit were asleep during all this horrid time, where all these horrible things are coming on her head. Technically, the woman's head technically would be your understanding, and she has been forced to drink this cup of fury down. But watch, it says there is no son, there is no one to guard her among all the sons whom she has brought forth. No, but she brings forth 7 daughters who are able to guard them. Among all the sons whom she has brought forth, neither is there any that taketh her by the hand of all the sons that she has brought up. Not one of them. You know why? Because they all stabbed her in the back. They didn't want to receive her truth. And then they all fell into their own snare of lies that none of them can escape. Yet they are promised to escape. So these 2 things are coming to thee. Who shall be sorry for thee? Desolation and destruction. Yet more are the children of the desolate than of she who has a husband. Baal. Yeah, her name's Baal too, just like his. There is no one to take hold of her hand among all the offsprings that she has brought up. None calleth for justice, none calleth for peace, none calleth for equity. Not in the religious lies. These women believe this lie. They're Baal, right? That's why the vineyard, she says, but my own vineyard I have not kept. So we're actually getting 2 here, right? We're getting the adversary, the harlot, against the righteous spirit that rises up at the end, who actually went to sleep, right? Yep, she went into a deep slumber. That's why we get awake, awake. So these 2 things have happened to you, devastation and destruction, famine and sword. Who grieve for you, how can I comfort you? Your children have fainted. They lie at the head of every street like an antelope in a net. And they did. They went through all these things. They are full of the Lord's fury and the rebuke of your God. So listen to this, afflicted and drunken one, but not with wine. This is what your Lord God says, even your God who defends her people. What does it say in one of the passages? It says, arise, God, and defend yourself, defend your people. The God was known as the presence of God, which was identified as the women inside the nation of Israel who will awaken like a warrior that's been drunk on wine, though it says not on wine, so we know what it means. The wine is identified as an admixture of religious lies and laws. It's got her trapped in a law system made by man that's full of violence and bloodshed and causes her hand also by extension to be full of blood. All right? I'll lay the key of David, no, the key of Israel upon your shoulder. You must restore my house back, dear daughter. You've got to stand up and present your case. Long time have I been silent, she says, but I will put it into the hand of them that afflict thee, that have afflicted you, your tormentors, which have said to thy soul, bow down, woman, that we may go over, because we're better than you. We are the sons of God. He created and made everything, though she's the one that clearly forms the matter. Why now do I see every man standing around with his hands on his hips as if he's like a woman that can actually create life and matter and create all things? And the creation is groaning for the deliverance of these daughters that can actually give life. The children have come to the birth. There is not strength to deliver because men don't deliver children, though they're on the pulpit saying, he gave life to everything or made everything. He can't. He can't. Over and over it tells you that. But I will put it into the hand of them that have afflicted you, have oppressed you, and who said, lie down so that we may go over. And you have made your back like the ground and like a street for those who walk on. So we know it's the women that they've done this to. They took counsel against the hidden ones over time. They became hidden. And so that means that they continue to build upon a religious lie and law system from the hidden ones that had went to sleep, right, in a slumber, that their eyes could not see and hear. So the way that that slumber continues to happen is the council takes decrees against the hidden ones, and they continue to daub over the lie with this whitewash wall. They keep preaching this lie until they forget that it's a lie. They've told it so long, they forget it's a bloody lie. So when we go to verse 9, we're just about done. I'm sure the video's long enough now, and we'll pick it up in the next. So in verse 9, awake, awake, put on strength, O arm of the Lord. Awake as in the ancient days and the generation of old. Art thou not she that has cut Rahab and wounded the dragon? So where does verse 9 in Isaiah 51 lead us to? Well, it leads us straight into Isaiah 52, and our understanding begins to grow. Who's in reference in Isaiah 51? Awake, awake, put on thy strength, O Zion. This is verse 1 of Isaiah 52. O Jerusalem, O daughter Jerusalem, the holy city, for henceforth there shall no more come into thee the uncircumcised and the unclean. What's the uncircumcised a reference to? Those that still has the foreskin, because we actually said it this way. They actually tried to grow a second one. And the foreskin is a reference to a covenant with the harlot spirit, which is why Abraham was told to circumcise not only himself, but every male in his house, because he was to be in covenant with Sarah, which was going to be the seed of the branch of the Lord, and where all children and all life would stem from. So he was to cut that foreskin away as a symbol that he would not exalt the harlot, which is why the uncircumcised and the unclean cannot come in. Shake thyself from the dust, arise and sit down, O daughter Zion. Loose thyself from the bands of thy neck, O captive daughter of Zion. You've been captured by a lie. What does it say? Who oppressed her? For thus saith the Lord, ye have sold yourselves for naught, and ye shall be redeemed without money. You'll be redeemed with the truth. She says, come to my waters, Isaiah 55, and believe. Only need belief. Which is why the restoration has to fall with the daughters, because mother accused them of being the ones because they went silent. They did not present the case. So she says, I got to side with him because you're not saying nothing. Because she was just struck dumb, just like Eve was. This is my partner. He agreed to this covenant, and now he's stabbing me in the back? I don't get what's going on here. And so Eve goes silent in the accusation. She literally went silent. Just like the woman says in Isaiah 42, long time have I held my peace. Now will I go forth as a travailing woman. I will lay the key of David on you to restore the house. You have gone silent. You better go out and figure out what happened. And she went silent after these kings rose up and accused her of things that she knew not. And she says that in Isaiah 35 as the lily. She will blossom like the lily. That's the lilies of the covenant. The daughters. And she says, they accuse me of things that I know not. Let me see. Let's go there. I still don't know how long my video is getting to be. Isaiah 35. What does it say? It says, the wilderness and the solitary place shall be glad for them, and the desert shall rejoice and blossom as the rose. That says the lily, the lilies of the covenant. Israel is identified as lilies. That's why the covenant of the lilies in the Psalms becomes so important, like Psalm 80, Psalm 108. They're to do with the Psalms of the covenant of the lilies. Psalm 45, she's not bound to a king. She's actually taken and she bows to her mother. You were never told to bow to your husband. Ever. I remove the name of Baal off of your tongue. He is not your Lord and Master. It shall blossom abundantly. It will rejoice, she will rejoice, even with joy and singing. The glory of Lebanon shall be given unto her. The excellence of Carmel, Sharon, they shall see the glory of the Lord and the excellency of our God. Strengthen ye the weak hands and confirm the feeble knees. She's saying this to the daughters. You are stronger than what they're telling you you are. Don't be afraid of these men who do not live forever. You live forever, my daughter. You can swear by yourself that you live forever because you actually do. You are one of mine. Say to them that are of the fearful heart, be strong, fear not. So what is the womb of Sheol promised for? For the fearful and unbelieving. So when you don't want to hear, when you don't want to weigh up, you are considered fearful and unbelieving. God, I will come with vengeance, even God with a recompense. She will come and she will save you. Then the eyes of the blind shall be opened and the ears of the deaf shall be unstopped. Where is it? Well, maybe it ain't 35. I don't know. It's one of these chapters where she says they accuse me of things that I know not. And I can't remember. Okay. But it's amazing. It's her that comes in Isaiah 42. Isaiah 35 is all about Isaiah 42, she that comes. Right. Takes you to Song of Songs 4:12 to 15. She that flows like a living water from Lebanon. She will spring up at the end. She's the water that was denied in the beginning. Now, therefore, she says, for thus saith the Lord God, my people, my daughters went down aforetime into Egypt to sojourn there, and the Assyrian oppressed them without cause. So who oppressed them? It was Sennacherib. She says, you blaspheme my holy name. They, like Adam, transgressed my covenant. She says, they hated me without cause. They shot at the branches. These wicked sons, these archers, Baal, they're identified in Genesis 49, shooting at the daughters as they pass over the wall. And it says they hate it, hate it, hate it. And every time you run out the word hate, it's always to do with man hating her covenant, female, she, her law. They just did not want to uphold her law. So when we run out Isaiah 52, if you want to read it all, yeah, it's amazing how it leads you all back to this man-made religious law and law system. Now it's on the daughters to awaken from sleep. Behold, my servant shall deal prudently. She shall be exalted and extolled and be very high. That's the daughters, first fruits of mother's womb. She is also identified as the firstborn and sovereign of the kingdom where the law was to come from. As many were astonished at thee, her visage was so marred more than any man's ever was, and her form more than the sons of men. So shall she sprinkle many nations. The kings shall shut their mouths at her. For that which had not been told them shall they see, and that which they had not heard shall they consider. And she says, your male idols have not spoken any of this. It was for my daughter that was reserved for the end, these daughters that will speak this truth, because you could not. You could not speak this truth. It was not ordained for you to speak. So then we go to Psalm 89 and we recognize that this is all called the right hand. She is, where's Psalm 89? Right there. Okay, so Psalm 89. There's many things in this that I wanted to look at. So I'm going to go through this right quick, and then we're going to skip maybe to Zarqa Yamama. So when we go to Psalm 89, if you scroll down to verse 10 of Psalm 89, it says, thou hast broken Rahab in pieces as one that is slain. Thou hast scattered thine enemies with thy strong arm. The heavens are thine, the earth also is thine. As for the world and the fullness thereof, thou hast founded them. Who? Well, your God, your rock that you denied in the very beginning, who swore by herself that she lived forever. But she says, you denied me, yet am I the spirit of your covenant that you denied and dealt treacherously with, in Malachi chapter 2. Yet the heavens is hers to fill, because all matter that is created comes from her. The female gods from all study predates any of the male gods, though they've buried that one over a lot since I discovered it. The heavens are thine, the earth also is thine. As for the world and fullness thereof, thou hast founded them. The north and the south thou hast created, Tabor and Hermon. So there you go, with a study right there. And you get two mountains in mention there. Two mountains, not one. And Hermon was another name for Sion, which I claim was in Judah. Tabor, when we get looking into it, is going to actually link us to the Mount Bashan, really, which is like ivory teeth. Although the word for Tabor, I believe here, is broken in pieces or shattered, which then leads you to this verse, this diggy little verse. It was amazing. Oh, it is found in Proverbs. Where is it? Where is it? Oh, now I'm not going to be able to find it. Sorry. It is found in Proverbs. I can't even remember the passage now. I may have pulled it up at the end here. No, I did not. So it's back here. It's, where is it? Come on. Is it there? That's Ezekiel 19. Psalm 89. I thought it was the next one. Right there. Right there is where it takes you to. Because Bashan leads you to, ivory, right? Tabor was the mountain that was broken, right? Because they tore her house down, which leads you actually to the Mount Bashan, which is the mountain of God in Psalm 68, which you're trying to say really is Zion, right? Yet the dew comes from Tabor. I think it does not come from Hermon. They got Hermon and Zion in the same passage, where it's got the dew will come from Zion and fall on Mount Hermon, right? And bless it. No, the dew falls from Mount Tabor, where the daughters were. Dew is identified as the doctrine of God, right? We identified that. You can go to Deuteronomy 32. Your dew is identified as your doctrine. And that was to come from the north, which was Tabor in this verse. But when you look Tabor up, it means broken down, right? Broken pieces. Well, Bashan is the same mountain mentioned as a mountain of God in Psalm 68, which means ivory, a tooth. So what does it say about the tooth and an unfaithful man? Proverbs 25:19. Watch this. And your foot, that he stung when she fell and stumbled in Romans 11. Remember, we're putting the riddles, these dark sayings all together. What does it say? Confidence in an unfaithful man, a treacherous man in times of trouble, and she was in trouble, is like a broken tooth and a foot out of joint. That's what man had become for her. And it's a reference to her mountain that became broken because he was not supporting her truth and her law. Right? Yeah. So Hermon, the reason why we can reference Hermon, now they'll want to, it's not, no, it's not. Deuteronomy 4:48, it says from Aurora, which is by the bank of the river Arnon, even unto Mount Sion, which is Hermon. So there it is Hermon, and Tabor was a mountain in the north, which was identifying her house that they had broken down, which is then identified as Mount Bashan in Psalm 68, so we'll go there. All right, we're jumping all around. You have to get your little book of truth that's sealed up, which is going to be your court case where you defend yourself. The one that's brought to the ancient days with her virgins. And I am. That's kind of sick and twisted. Anyway, what does it say? The hill of God is as the hill of Bashan, an high hill, as the hill of Bashan. So the dew come from Tabor, really, and it fell on Hermon, which was to bless it, which was Sion. So the dew is identified as a doctrine. And the hill of God is as the hill of Bashan, which we get ivory representing Bashan, and high hill as hill. Now they'll say it's a 7 mountain chain, Bashan. But it's clear that it's a reference to daughters. Why leap ye high hills? This is a hill which God desireth to dwell in. Yea, the Lord will dwell in it forever. Now they want to say that that's Zion. No, it's Bashan. She tells us it's Bashan, where Tabor was, which was in Lebanon in the north. Now I haven't looked into all that because they find ways to make two words mean the same word mean 2 different things or 10 different things. They're very good at it. So, where was we? We were in Psalm 89 was where we were. So, it was you, right hand of God, and heavens are thine. Remember right hand. The right hand was identified as the daughters inside the nation of Israel. Pick yourself out of the dust of the earth. Take back your throne. She says to daughter, Babylon, which is a harlot bound to her Baal. She's Baal herself, hid in his heart. Which got exalted to the hosts of heaven, and she got cast down, stamped upon, and the daily sacrifice was taken away. Yet 2,300 days will the temple be cleansed. She will be repurposed for what she's supposed to be, according to that. Because they say, none of us knows how long this will last. And that was in reference to when the axemen, like axemen in a forest carrying axes, went in and tore down her sanctuary. The prophetesses or the priestesses who had their robes ripped away from them in Micah 2 as if they were men at war attacking her house because they didn't want her law system. They were proud and boastful, just like their father Adam, who became known as Satan, the accuser, accused the wife of the original covenant. According to Malachi chapter 2, he accused her. Yet is she the wife or the spirit of the original covenant? Yeah. And you will not deal treacherously with her. So God promises to restore her. Where was it going? I forget. So Tabor and Hermon shall rejoice in thy name. Thou hast a mighty arm, a strong is thy hand, and high is thy right hand. Justice and judgment, you struck the judge, which is identified as the daughter of Zion with her troops. Gather thyself in troops, O daughter of troops. They have laid a siege against you. And they did. They laid a siege against the daughters. That's right. The kings took counsel. They cut our law system away, and then they yoked us under their religious lie and law. And she, the harlot, bows to it and says, he's God. What is a Jezebel? A Jezebel is a woman who builds her hubby up and says he deserves whatever he wants, even if he wants to stamp upon the righteous daughters with his religious lies and laws. So, I may in the future, once we get through all of this, which is still so much to go through, I'll leave my tabs up and hopefully my computer will leave them alone. Different times I've woke up and I've left it so that when I get up, it'll just spring back up. They've taken all my tabs away. And so it's a bit of a hassle to have to go out and find them again because sometimes they're not there for me to restore, right? Your last 50 tabs, it'll say, last 50 tabs, restore, ask you that question. And sometimes they're not there. Anyway, so we'll pick it up. But what I was going to look at again, and we looked at it in a video quite a while ago on Ruth Abbey, like we have so many of these topics, we may examine what it was that God had against, so-called against these 7 churches, actually against the 7 daughters, and their core group of people, their daughters, what God actually had. And when you get right down to it, in just about every case that we examine, what God truly had against them was Baal worship. Husband as Lord and God. So that was what God had against them, with one exception, which was the Philadelphians, who actually had the key of David. And what she opens, none can shut, and what she shuts, none can open. That has to do with understanding, right? So again, like we say on this channel, it's not on us to open your eyes. It's on you to open them. I'm just here to present it to you. You're anointed when you do the work. Should you choose to do the work that God has placed upon you as a personal anointing for you. That is why Shiloh in the scepter that we will rule through is for those, for the one that is appointed for. And that means you who do the work. That's what it means. So anyway, thou has a mighty arm, strong is thy hand, and high is thy right hand. Justice and judgment are the habitation of thy throne. Mercy and truth shall go before thy face. Blessed is the people that know the joyful sound. They shall walk, O Lord, in the light of thy countenance. In thy name shall they rejoice all day, and in thy righteousness shall they be exalted. For thou art the glory of their strength, and in thy favor our horn shall be exalted. For the Lord is our defense. The horn is a symbol also of enlightenment. Oftentimes, that's what the horn is a symbol of. It's also a symbol of spiritual power. For the Lord is our defense, and the Holy One of Israel is not our king, our Lord, or our queen. Again, we get multiple here. We'll get that in the study of Zarqa Yamama, which we may pick up in the next video. Maybe I'll get to do another video right behind this tomorrow. I don't know. And we'll do Zarqa Yamama, and we will identify how the eyes is actually the stones of the wall. And those are the eyes of the daughters and the sons that are looking out, and they're, you know what, they're trimmed in? Oh, we'll look at that in the next video. It's exciting. For thou art the glory of their strength. Wisdom is the glory of our strength. And in thy favor our horn shall be exalted, for the Lord is our defense, and the Holy One of Israel is our Lord. Then thou speakest in vision to the Holy One, and saidst, I have laid help upon one that is mighty. So who was the help laid upon, truly, if she laid the key of David upon Shebna to restore the house back? Well, she promises that she'll call this Lord out of the earth, and she will restore the house back. And it's through her help, wisdom, because she says, I have carried you in my womb all the days of old. So what do you tend to do when you get old? You tend to learn to understand things in wisdom. So in her wisdom, right, and she chose to be like one of them. She became like them. She carried their burden. But over the time of her doing that, she becomes wise like her mother. So that was the help that she promises. And I have laid help upon one that is mighty. I have exalted one chosen out of the people. I have found not David, Israel. Israel was a servant, my servant, with my holy oil, who I have anointed. With my holy oil have I anointed her, with whom my hand shall be established, and mine arm also shall strengthen her. The enemy shall not exact upon her. The enemy will not afflict her. Why? Because she has the truth. Yeah, if you're founded upon the truth, your enemy can't afflict you because you have the truth, right? They can try to pick and mock and mock and mock. But wisdom says, I'll mock you in the day of your calamity. You will bring back on your head exactly what you prophesy, your own lies. You'll bring them on your own head. And if you girls ain't realized what a man law system has done, well, keep saying, Jesus, 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 and guess what? You'll get exactly what you want. All of that right back upon your own head, which she promised you. She says, my daughters stagger in astonishment. I will cause you to stagger by what he will do to you. I promise you that. And I will beat down her foes before her face and plague them that hate her. And they shot at these daughters' branches as they passed over the wall. And it all links you to that little phrase, you hated me from the beginning without cause. It was your wicked pride. And yet she says to her daughter, I'll await. I'll await. There's a court case pending. It's called the Controversy of Zion. But my faithfulness and my mercy shall be with her, and in my name shall her horn be exalted. I will set her hand also in the sea, and her right hand in the rivers. She shall cry unto me, Thou art my, not father, my mother, my God, my wisdom, and the rock of my salvation, who writhed in pain to form and birth us. You told our potter, our maker, our creator, she had no power over the clay, her own children, because you stole her birthright and you taught yourself as God, and you made a law system, and she says, you're not fit to carry my statutes on your tongue. You're not fit. So also I will make her my firstborn higher than the kings of the earth. My mercy will I keep for her forevermore, and my covenant shall stand fast with her. She says she is the light of the world, and she will be the light of the world. I promise this to my daughter. She says she promises it in Isaiah 49 if you want to go read it. If her children forsake my law and walk not in my statutes, that comes from wisdom, walk not in my judgments or my ordinances or my rules. If they break my statutes and keep not my commandments, then will I visit their transgression with a rod and their iniquity with stripes. So then that takes us to the daughter who is born, the child that is caught up to mother's throne, who shall ascend into my holy hill, she with clean hands and pure heart. Psalm 2, she says, this day have I begotten firstborn of my womb, which is identified as a daughter. She says, birth, it's not a father there. It's certainly not a son. She says, kiss the lips of my daughter, not of a calf, idol, your bull god, is basically what she's saying there, which actually we know it's the rod of Aaron that she sends, wisdom sends when they refuse to listen to her or hearken to her commandments. And that was found in Proverbs 1. She says, fine, when I called, you couldn't bother to listen to anything I, wisdom, had to say. I will mock you and laugh in the day of your calamity, and I will send a rod of strength. And so that rod of strength takes us to Psalm 2. That's a firstborn daughter who is promised to be birthed out of the womb of Sheol. She is caught up to her mother's throne. Who shall ascend into my holy hill? She with clean hands and a pure heart, and the one who has not lifted up her soul unto male idols, vanities. And she with clean hands and a pure heart is a Shulamite. She's found being the pure one of her mother in Song 6:9. We also find her as the well of water, which cleanses you, flows from Lebanon, and Songs 4. 12 to 15, she flows from Lebanon, which was where her house is established. And then we find the Shulamite's fingers dripping with myrrh, clean hands, you see. Then will I visit their transgressions with the rod. She comes back. Yeah, she comes back. And what do the men say in Isaiah 28? So this is how I'm looking at it at this point. So when her and her daughters riding on their white horses from heaven, and the name on her thigh, a thigh is a symbol of a birthright. We get that in 249. The number 249 is identified as the symbol of a birthright. And it connected me to Abraham, writing a hand under a sign, all that crap. The birthright belonged to her. It always did. And so these daughters ride back with their name on their thigh. They are the faithful and the true ones. That's their names. And that leads us to mothers of truth. The word emet means truth, and em means your mother. And so they ride in and they judge as the rod of Aaron. So there comes a form of an attack out there, planetary alignment must happen and whatnot, all this stuff that you actually see when you get to deeper understanding. And then what do we see the men saying? Oh, with the womb of Sheol, or with Sheol, are we at agreement? When the overflowing scourge comes in, they can't touch us. They can't touch us in our web of lies, because what they think is these daughters don't have the truth. They don't know the truth, but they do. And so they're able to come back in and judge these wicked boys for their falsehood and their religious lies that they developed. So that's in Isaiah 28. And she says, this covenant of lies of the woman being your harlot down at your feet, worshiping you like your God, Jesus, bridegroom, husband, Lord, master, creator of all, your web of lies, that one's going to be disannulled. Nah, that was never my covenant. I'll remove the name Baal off your tongue. Then will I visit their transgressions with the rod, and their iniquity with stripes. Nevertheless, my loving kindness will I not utterly take from him, nor suffer my faithfulness to fail. She didn't. She gives us to cover you with, right? But the pride of man won't let him. And she says, they won't. The snare, I warned you a long time ago. You do this. You preach this religious lie and law. You're going to fall into it and you're not going to escape it, boys. Once have I sworn by my holiness that I will not lie not David, unto Israel my daughter. Her seed shall endure forever, and it was the woman's seed, and her throne as a sun before me. So she's the sun and the light of the world as identified in Isaiah 49, and that is she identified as the Holy Spirit with the covenant, the original covenant that was denied. It shall be established forever as the moon and as faithful witness in the heavens. Salah. So who's your faithful witness? In allegory, your faithful witnesses is the sun and the moon. That will shine 7 times brighter. The moon will be at her feet, Virgo's feet, and the sun at her back. But thou hast cast off and abhorred, thou hast been wrought with unanointed. She was. Thou hast made void the covenant of thy servant. Thou hast profaned her crown by casting it to ground. So we found the sons of Ephraim casting her to the ground, which was identified as the righteous daughters. Then we see these wicked priests getting drunk on their own power and a religious lie, admixture of wine and cup, which is the Red Sea that she parts. So all of these 3 passages absolutely identifies her, the daughters, as the right hand of God, and also as she who lays the heavens out, which is why you're getting creation groaning, waiting for the birth of these daughters. Yes. So there we go. Remember, Lord, the reproach of thy servants, your daughters, how I do bear in my bosom the reproach of all the mighty people. Wherewith thine enemies have reproached, O Lord, wherewith they have reproached the footsteps of thine anointed. Blessed be the Lord forever and ever. Amen. Now, when you go to, let me see, we'll do this right quick so we ain't got to do it in the next video, so I'll take down all the ones that we do. So when we go to this word in Strong's Greek, it's 1228, diabolos, slanderous, accusing falsely, which is what Adam did to the spirit of the original covenant. We find references to her in Malachi 2, when he dealt treacherously with the wife of his youth and married the daughter of a strange god, which was Baal. Yeah. So we see men like Mordecai actually teaching the next generation of little girls how to bow to a king, a man, as Lord and God. And we saw them actually murdering the stones, precious stones, which was the wise women in Lamentations 2. So once they had cut down these wise cedar trees, the last had come through, had gave their power all that they had, such as this one who went down to make a name for herself before they go to sleep in the spirit. She went out, she destroyed Sennacherib's army, and Sennacherib was destroyed. Once these cedar trees, these tall ones, these wise women, then the sons take control of the next generation of daughters, right? So we get slanderous, accusing falsely, the slanderer par excellence, the devil. Us to slander, accuse, and defame. Properly, a slanderer, a false accuser. That was Adam in the beginning. Unjustly criticizing, to hurt, malign, and condemn, to sever a relationship. He severed the relationship with the righteous daughters so he could put a harlot in here and play God. He exalts a harlot to the commander of the host, and what happens is the kingdom gets handed over to him, and he plays God. He says, oh, that I might be like the Most High. Look at me. I'm sitting in her chair. That's what he says. So we get this accuser, Baal, husband, Lord of dung. Beelzebub is another word for Satan, the Lord of the demons, which is the first Adam, the first father of this world, if you want to call him that, where all the other preceding fathers come from. They're all liars. And it says he was from the beginning. An accuser, a slanderer, someone who casts through, we actually see them digging out the truth and packing in a web of lies and then daubing it over with a whitewash. The idea is that it's thinly holding, but when we go in and start to dig it out, we can actually dig it out in less than 15 years. It took them thousands of years to put in play. That's how wise her daughters are compared to these boys playing God, where the boys actually is found stepping back and going, no one sees us. We hid when we did it. Nobody saw what we did. We covered it all over, right? And yet God says, my eyes will take you no matter where you are. I'll see you no matter where I am. So making charges that brings down and destroys as a predictable wind-up toy playing out his evil nature. So used by God in this plan. So she does. And she uses him being wicked to bring her daughter to the truth is what she uses. So wearing this web of lies, this yoke of lies on our neck causes us to eventually pick her head up and go, there's something bloody wrong here. And then cause her to investigate, which is the key that she has to restore back. So we also understand that she went into mourning. This is important, this word here, because then it's going to lead us to Zephaniah 3. This word, to accuse and to defame, which is diablos, which is another name for the devil, and Satan, the accuser. So what does God say in Zephaniah 3? I will gather them that are sorrowful for the solemn assembly, who are of thee, mother, wisdom, to whom the reproach of it was a burden. What reproach of exile is a burden? She got exiled because of the accusations made by Adam, and this was a reproach that she bears upon her. Yet she chose to suffer like one of us. It says, these daughters chooses to suffer like one of us, right? So at 19, behold, at that time I will undo all that afflict thee, and I will gather her. It does say her that was driven out. This is your Asaph, your gatherer. This is Shiloh, the scepter, and all the people will flow into her. And I'll get them praise and fame. There's a land, fame. There's the word, fame, rather. In every land where they have been put to shame. By who? By who? The slanderer who defamed them and debased them, and who accused her wrongfully, which is another name for Satan. And Beelzebub is another name for Satan, which is another name for Adam, husband, Lord and God. Oh, that my accuser, man, that's in Job 31, had written his accusations in a book. I would wear it like a crown upon my head, and in the end, I would use it to exonerate me, and I would pull out that little book, which is the truth. It's a little book. The rest are lies. Behold, at that time I will undo all that afflict thee, and I will save her that halteth, and I will gather her that was driven out, and I will get them praise and fame in every land where they have been put to shame. At that time will I bring you again, even in the time that I gather you, for I will make you a name, Israel, and a praise among all people of the earth when I turn back your captivity before your very eyes. I will restore your fortunes. What did Adam mix in the cup for fame and for fortune for, I forget the two words. Wine. An admixture of lies. That's what he did. But she says, I will restore your fortunes back to you. And she's talking to daughters here who have been defamed. By who? Diablos. 228. He defamed them. He debased them when the first Adam is shown accusing her, the original spirit of the original covenant, and rejected it out of pride. And we see it happening over and over and over again. Now, I'm going to draw the line there for now. And probably tomorrow, if I get the chance, I'm going to pick up the story of Zarqa, Yamama. Yeah, I feel funny saying that word, Yamama, but I love saying that word, Yamama. We'll pick that story up and we'll see how it actually shows us validated in the scriptures. And we're going to pick up Shebna. So maybe we'll cover both of those topics. I'll go through and I'll take down a bunch of these that we've already looked at, and it might make the next study a bit easier. So anyway, let's see here. There's our video. Oh my gosh, we're over 2 hours already. Oh my gosh, did I talk that long? So thanks for watching. I better get moving along. Thanks, all who joins me on these studies. I appreciate it. I hope I didn't fumble my words and say things that I should have been saying different and stuck other words in there that I don't mean. I do that often. Forgive me for that. I pray the Lord blesses you with an abundance of truth. Oh my gosh, it's getting late here. I thank you for being here. I pray the Lord blesses you, and I hope you all have a lovely day, and thank you for watching me and my videos and being along on the studies.